Cool. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I got a really special guest today. I met Mark a few months ago. I was invited to a seminar by Lenny Gray. I think if you guys listen to the podcast, you heard Rob on here talking, Lenny on here talking about it. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Didn't know who was going to be there. And I showed up in Minnesota, and then Mark was speaking, and they have something really, really cool that I wanted everyone here in the pest control industry to learn. But today's guest is Mark Hummel. He is the CEO of Pest Empire Builder, and he also is the CEO of Inspector Builder. And I think you said you're out of Houston, right, Mark?
Yeah, that's right. Of course, I say I'm in Houston. I'm actually 30 miles south of Houston in the suburbs, but Houston's so big.
Well, again, thanks for taking the time to hang out with me today. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing in the industry. It was really cool to see what you guys had going on, and I was super impressed with what you guys have over there. So I was like, I got to connect with Mark. He's a good dude. I love what he's doing, and I think everyone else that is in the industry, whether it's pest control or inspections, they should definitely reach out to Mark. He's a stud. But again, thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man. Really excited to dive in.
Yeah, it was what was that? It was probably like 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, it was over the summer, and it was a complete experiment, the class we put on, because we didn't know what the response would be in the summertime. And we were thankful that you jumped in, and about 20 other people jumped in, and it was a really good time to just dive in and talk about the business model in the pest industry that we're teaching, and the systems and the processes that we're teaching people. And I'm sure we'll dive into some of that. But
absolutely,
yeah, man, we had a really good time meeting people.
Yeah, it was good, and like all those. It was a small group, like you said, like 20, 25 people ever were there. But it was nice. Got to meet a lot of new people that I didn't know, one including yourself, and just really get to know a lot about the industry. So those places are just great for networking. You come out of, again, with a few golden nuggets, but again, it's more about the relationship building, Why don't you kind of just walk us through, like I know you and I had a side phone call, but where you started from in high school? Like if you and I were a junior or senior in high school, who is Mark Hummel then?
Oh my gosh, going that far back.
Let's go. Okay.
So, so in high school, you would have looked at Mark Hummel and said, who is this guy compared to what I'm doing now? Back then, I was just working out and playing video games and hanging out with my girlfriend, who's actually still my wife today.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
congratulations.
we were 14. Yep. Didn't care much about school, didn't have a plan, didn't know what I was doing. And that's what life looked like. I grew up on land, had animals all over the place.
Were you like a competitive guy? I know you didn't really like sports. Or were you kind of like the guy who didn't like to listen a lot? Like, did you push back? Like, what were you then?
I've always been very aggressive in what I do, and not necessarily in an abrasive way, but anything I put my mind to, I've always gone all in. So I actually did do sports, but I stopped all my sports early on in high school because I met my girlfriend, who's my wife now. Her name's Misty. She rode the same school bus, and so I abandoned football, I abandoned track, and I started riding the school bus. And I like to say it worked out just fine for me.
Yeah. And then you graduated high school, then you went off to college, correct?
No, actually. So, well, kind of. So I got out of high school, and again, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I actually became a paramedic. So went to college, got a certification, worked as a paramedic for a while, ended up running a county EMS agency, ended up being a task force leader for the state of Texas, doing a lot of emergency management stuff at a large scale. And I had a really good career, actually, heading into local politics. And because the next step up for me was local politics, I left and did something else.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you went back, right? And you went back to college after that, got your MBA, right? Correct?
That's right. Yeah. So
I had the timeline wrong, but.
Yep. No, I had a 13-year stint in the world of emergency management before I decided to make a change, and went back to school, got my MBA, and decided I was going to go into some sort of consulting lane and really dive into the private side of business. And I kind of happened upon the world of coaching because I was coaching people in the healthcare space with EMS agencies and different things like that, and talking through really high-level team building and systems and processes in that world. And that's where I kind of got the taste for it. And then I got the MBA thinking that I'd become a consultant. That's kind of the genesis of my current story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you skipped over a big part there. Like you have this 13-year career, doing really good for yourself. And all of a sudden, like, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go get my MBA, and then I'm going to start a business. Like, why? I mean, that's a big shift.
Yeah. So The why was completely because in the line of work I was doing, I'm sure this is not the story for everybody, but for me, what I continually found was that there was not an emphasis on excellence. Working for a local government and working for state-run operations and things like that, anytime we tried to apply something that was efficient or cost-effective or really made sense, I just found a lot of turbulence that made me really not like what I was doing. And so at the end of the day, I never really felt like I was going to be in that industry for very long because of that. I wanted something where my desire to help people be excellent was valued, and the trajectory of my career was taking me into politics, and I started playing around with that idea, and I actually got a bachelor's degree in public administration and was really heading into that. And the more and more I studied government and the more and more I leaned into leadership in the world I was playing in, the more and more I realized I just didn't want to be in it anymore. And so that's when I kind of made the decision in a pretty abrupt way to leave that industry and just kind of walk out a new path.
Yeah. Were you going to school while working at the same time, or did you just stop what you're doing and go straight into the MBA program?
Yeah, so it was brutal. I actually got my public administration degree while I was working as in the leadership roles I had. So it was a 24-hour job. I had at times 3 cell phones, a radio, a pager, reachable all the time, and going to school full time. Completed my bachelor's degree, and the same month that I completed it, I decided this isn't for me, and I enrolled in the MBA program and left everything.
Wow.
And so it was that abrupt of a change.
Your wife must have loved you.
She was super supportive, man. Yeah, she's got her own successful track record, but she was super supportive, and because of her and because of the just kind of how we lived our life, I was able to stop working for about 8 months and just focus on the MBA, which was the best summer of my life too. I got to hang out that summer with my kids and teach them all about grocery shopping and finances and all kinds of stuff like that. Super fun.
Yeah, and through the process of the MBA program, what were some of the big takeaways? I know you and I talked about, again, offline, but what were some big takeaways that you took from your MBA program?
Honestly, man, the best thing I took away from it was the ability to think through a business problem and come to a solution or a set of solutions that you can try, track, and iterate and reiterate. And I couldn't tell you all of the little skills I learned. I'd have to go back to the books and reference a lot of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I can solve problems. And I think that the educational process that I went through was all about that. Like, how do you think at the highest level, have the biggest goal in mind, and not only have a goal, but actually aim at it and then track your way to it. And that's a really powerful thing in coaching too, it turns out.
Yeah, I agree. Would you do that all over again?
Good question. So, nope, I would not go get my MBA all over again.
That's what everyone is. I've thought about it over and over and over again. It's something that I should do. Like, I was like, no, we're not going to pass that, but keep pushing for it. But a lot of people ask that question. Should I go back to college to do this? Should I go to college? And I always said, like, best way to learn is just school of hard knocks.
Yeah. And of course, in the world we're in, right, with surrounded by entrepreneurs, that's oftentimes the case. People haven't gone to college, sometimes haven't even finished high school, and they're very successful sometimes. I can say I have a level of college experience that I think gives me the ability to say this. I have 3 degrees, and I wouldn't recommend anybody go to college unless it's a part of the puzzle they're putting together. So if they need the education to accomplish the thing they want to do, it's amazing. Go do it. However, if you can learn the skill or the trade or the thing you want to do without it, then just go do that. Both are powerful tracks. So there's benefits to both sides, right? But I think the shortest path to success is not college. It's surrounding yourself with people who are doing the things you want to do. Absolutely.
Or the people that have been there and done that can fast track the pace, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you haven't heard about Gorilla Desk yet, it's a super sick software. It's actually made by one of my really close friends, Chris Mareshi. So Chris built Gorilla Desk to help streamline his own personal business over 10 years ago. But now Gorilla Desk is used by over 4,000 companies. And today it's become one of the most premier platforms in our industry. So what's really unique about Gorilla Desk is that it's a simple all-in-one solution that's really easy for your team to use. Gorilla Desk offers a seamless onboard experience and best-in-class support with no additional cost. It's all included in your subscription. Inside the software, you'll find a whole suite of features, scheduling, invoicing, routing, and sales pipelines, integrated VoIP, text messaging, and pretty much all the automation you're going to need, and much, much more. So if you guys are still relying on paper or spreadsheets or fighting with an old software, I highly recommend that you guys check out Gorilla Desk. So we have a link in our description. Click on that, and it'll take you right to their free trial. Now let's get back to the show. You graduate, get your MBA, and then how do you pick a sector to get in?
Yeah, that was actually really, really interesting. And so while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, again, I had that 8-month period where I just wasn't working. I was focusing full time on school, and I actually ended up getting bored with that. And so my kids went back to school, and so they were no longer at the house, and I was just sitting there doing schoolwork. So I jumped on ZipRecruiter, and I thought, well, let's see what I can do just to bring a little bit of cash in, have some fun while I'm finishing my MBA. And I found this part-time health coaching job down the road from my house. And I've always been into fitness. I lift a lot. I do a lot of exercise and stuff like that. So I thought I can help people with that. That'd be interesting. So for $18 an hour, I got a part-time health coaching job. And so this is where things get really interesting. Within 2 weeks of that part-time health coaching job, the person who hired me, her and I switched roles. We had a conversation, and she said, I think you're going to be better at this management job than I am, so let's switch. So then all of a sudden I was a store manager. And then about 3 weeks later, I met the people who actually owned this little store that I had applied for. And I found out that they were a couple of entrepreneurs who had just purchased the rights for 6 locations in Houston. And none of them were even built yet. So I had just stumbled upon this opportunity. And so within the first month, we came up with an agreement, and I was now their area manager in charge of developing these 6 locations, and equity was on the table, and all these awesome, interesting things came out of that. And so that's where I really got to work building teams of coaches. And I had thousands of hours of coaching doing that myself while I did it. We kind of bootstrapped it and built it. We got 2 of the 6 locations developed. We got 600 clients into those coaching programs. We put teams of coaches together. It was an incredible journey, but it wasn't what I had actually set out to do. So I did that for a couple of years, helped them get that off of the floor, and that was kind of where I really started to fall in love with coaching and putting teams together with people who create impact. It just happened to be in the health coaching space at that point. But really, what I absolutely loved about it was seeing other people impact folks and giving them a platform to do that, which is exactly what we do now with a couple of businesses that I run.
For sure. Were you like calling Alex Hormozy? Were you following his stuff then? Like, were you calling him to have a gym launch startup come in there?
No, man, I had no idea who that was back then. I was just doing what felt right.
I was thinking his gym launch secrets in my head.
Yep. Yeah, once he's in your head, he's hard to get out of your head, man.
He is. And that's one of the best books that I ever read. And I don't think I even mentioned the podcast before, but Gym Launch Secrets is such a great book. And yes, it talks about gym, but you can apply it to any business. So it was awesome. So if you haven't read Gym Launch Secrets, go read it. Then so you leave there. And then how does this all start?
Yeah, so I transitioned from the health coaching company to Inspector Empire Builder first. And it was because I was looking for a team of people to work with who were really causing a lot of impact. And so Inspector Empire Builder is how I met the group of people I work with now. And so I actually came in to replace the current CEO at the time, who was one of the founders. And so that was kind of the start of the relationship. And that was 5 years ago or so, almost at this point. And so I came in, and what they wanted me to do, my mission, if you will, was to take it from the founding launch level of this business coaching company and really do what we're supposed to do, put systems, processes, and people in place. And we did that. And so over the last few years, I've been the CEO of, 5 years, been building this company, and it is now a business coaching mastermind group with about 250 companies in it. All over North America, and interestingly, a guy in Australia. I don't know how that happened, but he likes our stuff.
That's awesome.
And so Canada, North America, all over the place. IEB is pretty well known. And so it's been incredible. And it was kind of the launch pad for a lot of other ideas, which is eventually how I met you. And I don't want to get too far ahead before I jump into the PEB side, but yeah.
So, like, what does the IBM do? I mean, I know, but what are for the listeners? What do you guys? I know you guys coach, but what do you guys focus on? What do you guys do in your coaching program?
Yep. So what we do as a coaching group in general is we really focus on the pattern of mindset, then strategy, then tools. And what we believe is you cannot nail strategy and tools unless you're thinking at the highest level, and that you're really becoming the person who can accomplish the goals that you have for your business. And so one of the first things we do with people, especially in the pest world or in the inspection world, is we help a lot of people switch from technician-minded thinking to true entrepreneurial minded thinking. And so for a lot of guys, that's painful. For some people, they're just itching to do it, but they don't really see the path to it. But either way, that shift is what happens for a lot of people when they come into coaching. So once we can get that piece squared away, then we can start helping them vision out what it is that they really want to build, and we'll start building a path to it. And then, of course, we start applying the business models that we teach. It just gets deeper and deeper from there.
Yeah. Now, were you working with like a bunch of realtors or just inspectors at the time? What does that look like?
Yeah, so under the IEB side, it's just inspection companies. So, of course, we have tons and tons of connections with agents and other stakeholders in the industry, but it's all it's all home inspectors, business owners that are jumping into this program.
Gotcha. And then how do you switch from that to the pest empire builder? Where does that come into play?
So we have a big vision, and I'm going to answer it with the big vision. So we have this thought that 80+% of what we do is really just business principles applied to technician-driven industries, and we are really, really good at that. And so we've had thousands of companies affected by Inspector Empire Builder, and we know the models work. We teach all kinds of things in services, operations, growth, building high talent teams, recruiting, culture, like financials. It just goes super deep. And so what we started to build out is a vision where we can take this mastermind business coaching model and apply it to really any industry. And so that's what we're doing. And we focused really hard on Inspector Empire Builder as our core product. And we started Pest Empire Builder sort of as a beta test maybe a year and a half ago underneath the Inspector brand. And it was really a group of about 20 to 30 companies who decided that they wanted to launch into this with us, with their pest companies. And we didn't charge much for it. And we just wanted to see if we could help people in a different industry kind of prove the concept. And we did. The coaches were able to cause a lot of impact, help people in their businesses. And so then it was time to launch it out into its own thing. And that's what we've done just earlier this year.
That's awesome. How do you come across Lenny Gray?
So I first heard Lenny's name from Tommy Mello. We had Tommy come out to one of our events and do some speaking, and Tommy's a super cool guy. Obviously, lots of people know him. And when I got to know him a little bit at the event, he's a great connector. And so he mentioned Lenny. I eventually connected with Lenny, and I guess I could say the rest is history. But over the course of the next year, I talked with Lenny and Rob about this idea of Pest Empire Builder, and they're all in, man. They are complete. They're such a great addition to the vision because they are completely all about helping people, and they're just absolute experts in their space too.
Great people, like just great individuals who not just business owners, CEOs, but just great people in general. They're always willing to help. Like Lenny's a big part of my story. That's why I went out to see you guys, because he was one of the first people that I reached out to and starting over and didn't know the door-to-door world. And he was willing to get on a phone call, start walking me through the process, not really charging me a lot at the time, like really, really helping me and making an impact on me too. So super cool. And I still remember sitting in my first house that I owned, typing up an email to Lenny. And then all of a sudden, I was like, this guy's never going to respond ever. And sure enough, that same night, he responded personally in an email. I'm like, oh, well, that was cool. So he impacted my life too. Good dude. Yeah, man. It really came full circle for me too at the event that you and I met.
So Lenny and I had, and Rob and a couple of other people, we visioned this thing out and we decided to launch it. And then when we got to the event, some of the people who were there walked up and wanted autographs from Lenny, and we're giving him hugs, telling him, "You've changed my life, my business," and all this great stuff. And I'm like, dang, man, we nailed it. We got the right people in place for this.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what are the next segments you will go after, do you think? I know you said you're going to give me your BHAG, so it's not just pest control. It's going to be, what else?
Yeah, that's the question, right? And so one of the things that I'm here to do is find subject matter experts and build communities around them. That's what I essentially do. So for example, I'm not an expert on pest companies. I'm also not an expert necessarily on inspection companies. I'm an expert business coach at this point, but going down into the niche is not what I do. What I do is I find experts who do that, and then we bring them in to lead the groups and do the coaching. And so really, the best way I can answer that question is if anybody's out there listening in the home service space and they are a subject matter expert who has a desire to build a community or a brand around them or their content or something like that, like that's what we're here to do, is work with people like that. So what exactly it's going to be next, that's hard to say, man. It depends on who we find.
Yeah. So what made you pick pest control first? Was it because of people were doing inspection? It was close.
Well, people were asking us to do it. So I'm glad you asked that, because it's important to talk about this. There's such a unique lead flow that can happen from an inspection company to a pest company, a lead flow opportunity. And so I know a handful of companies that were in our inspection coaching group that were doing that really well, managing the lead generation from the inspections and turning it into pest business. And so people kept asking us in the inspection space to start a group specifically for that. And that was where the original idea came from for pest. And so we leaned into that. We found a couple of coaches who could really nail that, and it just kept building from there. Then at a point, we decided we needed deeper levels of expertise and more people on the coaching team, and that's where Lenny and Rob came in.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So what does like the next 5 years look like for you, Mark?
Yeah, dude. So for Pest Empire Builder, what we're going to do is build it just like we did for the Inspector Empire Builder, which again has several hundred companies in it. We have a conference every quarter. We do live events, live classes, and then Zoom coaching calls all throughout the month with people, group coaching calls. And it's a really deep culture community of people who are not only being coached and trained, but they're actively helping each other cut the trial and error out of accelerating through different business stages. And that's where we get really passionate. It's like, let's stop spinning wheels in different business stages. Let's accelerate people through those things. So whether you're struggling with growth or service or operations or whatever it is in your business, somebody in the community has been there and can help you. And on top of that, of course, you get expert level coaching. I think that over the next 1 to 3, maybe 5 years, it's going to be a sharper trajectory than our inspection site is. And there's going to be hundreds of companies coming together in Pest Empire Builder to really cause a lot of impact, help each other, and get helped. It's going to be a really cool journey.
Yeah, I love that. I know you're going back because you mentioned it, someone with 1 or 2 technicians, trucks, they kind of get stuck at a bottleneck. What would you, to those people directly, what would you tell them to do next? Like, what is their next thing they should focus on?
To tackle that bottleneck? Is that what you're asking,
Yeah.
Jonas?
Yeah, because they get, I hear it all the time. Like, I asked a question the other day on my social media, like, why don't most people make content? It's 2024. Why aren't people making content? And the answer to 90% of the questions, there's probably 27 responses, was stuck in the truck, stuck in the truck, stuck in the truck. Out there working on the company, don't have time to work on it. What do you say to those people?
So the first step is to be extremely clear with what you're doing and why, because it's a pattern that people get into. If they're not sure what they're building, they'll just keep doing what's easy. And it's easy to service your business. It's super easy. It doesn't take a super talented business person to just provide your service. And this might hurt some people's feelings, but just because you're out there doing technical work doesn't mean you're super special, right? Especially if you want to build a business, some other people should be coming in behind you to do that. So the first thing to do is be extremely clear. And if you're not, that's where you park until you are clear enough to have a path. So once that's the case, the next thing, especially if we're diving in and coaching somebody, it's going to be about business routines. Right. And so a business routine example that somebody can take away would kind of go like this. Once you have your vision, you're clear on what you're building, chunk that down into a 1, 3, 5 year version of it. Like, what does it need to look like 1, 3, and 5 years out? And then at 5 years, start planning backwards, all the way down to the 1 year level. And this is not an exact science, by the way. So if somebody's listening going, I have no idea how to do that, just write something down. Just have a target. And that'll solve a lot of problems on its own, having a target. Once they have a target, they get down to the 1 year level. This is really, really important. So now it's time to think in terms of annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. This is a really good personal and business routine. You can apply this to your life too for life goals. So what does your business need to do in a year so that it can accomplish your 3-year goal, so that it can accomplish your 5-year goal? And then the same question goes the other direction. What do you need to do each quarter so that you can accomplish your 1-year goals? Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. Okay, so what a lot of people do, especially if they're out servicing their business and they're busy doing the technical work, is to get really, really busy, and it's hard for them to understand what's working and what's not working. So what we see is they'll be doing growth work and they do it very inconsistently, or they'll be doing business building work and doing it very inconsistently. And because they don't know what's working, what's not working, they change strategies all the time, right? They're going back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board. Well, what we say to do is you want to have a great annualized strategy, 1-year strategy. And then on a quarterly basis, you're going to evaluate where you are to see if you're on track. And on a quarterly basis is where you ask yourself, do I need to change my strategy so that I'll meet the goal? Only on a quarterly basis. On a monthly basis, we're going to evaluate the activity that we're doing for our quarterly goal. So here's an example. If I want to increase my business by 10%, let's just use easy math. If I want to increase it by 10% for the year, each quarter I'm going to look at my KPIs and see if I am on track to hit my 10% goal. If I'm not, I'm going to make a change to my strategy. Either I'm going to try a new marketing strategy, or I'm going to maybe bring in door-to-door, or whatever it is I'm going to do, right? However, at the monthly level, I'm not going to make strategy changes. I'm going to make activity changes. So if I'm not tracking for the quarter to hit my goal, I'm not going to say, okay, throw everything out, let's do door-to-door now, or throw everything out, let's just do digital now. Instead, I'm going to say, let's increase the activity to hit the goal. So on a monthly basis, it's activity. Quarterly, it's strategy. Annual, it's targets and goals. We could keep going deeper into weekly and daily, but if people could just do that, it would be awesome.
I remember, honestly, 7 years ago, probably at this point, maybe longer, doing that for the first time, sitting down, writing down my goals, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, breaking down a month and day. And I still have that sheet of paper. And I was in a coaching group, just, some similar to yours, in the lawn care space. And I still look back at that, and at that back then I wanted totally different than what I thought it would look like. But I blew those goals out of the water, which is really cool to see, at that time, what I was thinking. And my mentor always told me to think bigger, think bigger. Something else that you brought up too is that as entrepreneurs, we're kind of wiry as it is, and we always like to try different things because we get bored. And so we're constantly changing even the business and the model. And like you said, and the business never just gets a chance to grow organically because we're constantly changing it. So just stick to the same boring stuff. And I love that you said, don't change it on a monthly basis, wait till the quarter and then adjust to the quarter. It's so spot on. I was one of those guys, and I still can be, but I've learned to not do that because of that reason. I was stunting their growth. Just kind of get out of the way, set the strategy, get out of the way. And it's easier said than done, right? If you're got one person in a truck and you're a technician. But I remember I was a technician when I first started learning this stuff. But then after work, I'd go home. And back then, YouTube was just coming out. Podcasts were probably a few years out still, but I was listening to my recordings from my coach. Then I'd go home after work and I would work on the business as much as I could. I was still working in it, but then working on it, learning those principles, marketing things, and then slowly got myself out of the truck. Because I just I said, well, if I keep focused on this $5,000 to $1,000 an hour activities, not doing the $15 an hour activities, the business should grow, is what I thought. And it did. I started working on the brand, the marketing, the sales side of it, started growing my next route. And I built my next route. Pretty soon I'm out of the truck completely. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, that's gold, man. Your experience is so common too. Once somebody realizes, I love the way you put it. Once somebody realizes they shouldn't be doing the $10 or $15 an hour work, it frees them to start doing things that really have an impact. And this is the Eisenhower matrix, right? And for people who don't have any idea what that means, it's looking through the lens of what is urgent versus what is important. Your bigger goals are almost never urgent, as they say, right? And so we get so focused on the things that feel urgent. I have to do it right now. I have to do it right now. And that's almost never something tied to a really big goal. That's something usually tied to just providing a service or like we're saying, the $10 to $15 an hour work. And you'll just get stuck in that. People get stuck in that for decades, unfortunately, and just never really build what they have in their mind.
Yeah, and I think once they start paying attention, like to what others are doing, they really start to open their eyes and they start learning. They're like, oh shit, like I have to start working on my business. Like I have to get out of this truck when they're 50, 40, whatever, older. And it takes them a while, but that's okay. Like it doesn't matter where you're at today, you can still change it, right?
Yes. In fact, something you said, Jonas, that stuck out to me was the speed that you can build in the beginning. Not everybody can go 1,000,000 miles an hour in the beginning, right? But everybody can consistently take steps. And consistency over intensity is how people build big worlds. And so, so if somebody's in the truck right now and they're listening to this, or if they're working on something big and it feels really, really slow, the worst thing they can do is feel like 2 weeks from now on that Saturday that I have off, I'll take that whole day and work on my business. Instead, it's more like 30 minutes every single day. I'm going to keep this goal in front of me and I'm going to work on it. The people who have consistency always outperform the people who have intensity. And then it gets better when you get really, really consistent. You start understanding where to apply intensity. And that's where we really see people accelerate to really build big things, is when they understand when it's time to be intense and what to apply that to.
Yeah, and I always tell a lot of my guys and a lot of the people that I talk to that are just starting out, like you have to stay aggressively patient. Like all this overnight success that you see on Instagram, it's all fake. Like anybody who built anything, like you said, just shows up every single day. It's consistency. No matter what happens during the day, sick. I mean, I had surgery 2 weeks ago. That same day, I'm back to work. I think I told you, like I'm back to work, like day one. And people get calling because they have a cold. It's like, no, it's just not, we can't call in. We just show up every single day.
100%, man. That's it. Consistency.
Yeah. So it's, I love that you said that, like just breaking down your goals. It's really that easy to just take the time, take a half hour, 45 minutes, just write out your goals. You got to start, right? And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a massive goal. Everyone's goals are different. You want to have a lifestyle business that you can walk away from. You don't have to be there every day. Or if you want to build something big, it doesn't matter. Just you have to decide what's right for you and your family.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually a really funny thing. Because our name is Empire Builder, we found out a couple years into it that turned some people off because they didn't want to build an empire. They just wanted to have a comfortable, live a comfortable lifestyle with a comfortable business. And you nailed it, dude. There's no wrong-sized business as long as you've built what you want. And some people come in when they get coaching from us, and it's because they just want to get out of the field, and that's it. Other people want to be the biggest company in wherever they are. Other people want to live on, I want to build the biggest company in the galaxy. It doesn't matter so long as you're building what you want. That's the thing that I think is most important for people. And I have a strategy for this that I think might be helpful for people. Because one of the really common questions is, how do I get clear about what I want? You're saying get clear, but what does that look like, and how do I do it? And then when they do get clear, the next question is, well, how do I build a path? I have no idea where to even start. So at this point in life, we have this really, really great advantage over everybody else who has existed in the history of the human race, and that is AI. Right? And so right now, you could jump on a chatbot software, ChatGPT as an example, and you could run yourself through a visioning exercise by saying something like, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to get to know me, get to know my vision, ask me questions to help me process. And as you start to process through with the chatbot, it'll get more and more refined with its questions. And eventually you can say, now summarize all of that into a vision statement. And of course, it's not necessarily probably the one you'll use, but it usually does a really good job of articulating your authentic thought. And that's coaching. At the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is help people articulate their own authentic thought so that they can have a clear goal. But you can do that right now, this afternoon. Just jump on a chat bot and do it.
And then, like I said, you could be like, okay, well, I don't like that example. Give me 10 more examples like this one. It'll create 10 more. Like, man, this is awesome. Just kind of like take those 10 and make your own. That's fire. I use ChatGPT every single day. And for those who don't, you're missing out for sure. And we talk about AI a lot on here, but just make sure you're using that platform. You're putting your business name in there a lot, because again, like, more and more people are using it. They're gonna be like, hey, what's the best coaching program for pest control? And as long as you guys are using the algorithm correctly and just keep building that up in your area, like, ChatGPT start sending Mark referrals. Like, this is the person you need to talk to. It's super smart. So just keep using ChatGPT for those who aren't.
Love it. Yep.
Yeah, I know. I know. So you have like these these classes like cross country, right? Is it once a month that you travel around, or how do you guys work that? And where are you mainly going right now? Is it just in Texas, just Minnesota, kind of all over the place?
Yeah, so it really is kind of dependent on where we think the demand is, especially on the pest side, because it's still a newer project for us. It's already causing impact. Like, people have jumped in and people are jumping in. We have actually a free, we call it a round table, Pest Discussion Round Table, and that's every 2 to 3 weeks online. People can just jump into that, connect with us, connect with others. And really what we're doing is just exploring what people are doing in the industry to accelerate their growth in their businesses. So that's something that people have as an option.
Do you know when your next one is?
Oh, it's next week. So October 2nd. And the best way to get the information is to probably contact the team, and because it's an RSVP event, and we try to keep it relatively small so that we can get everybody to communicate, talk, and lean in. But again, we do this every 2 to 3 weeks. So if you get on the list, we can definitely get you into one of them. But info@pestempirebuilder.com.
Yeah, and we'll have all your links in the bio too. So everyone just go click on the link in the bio, go straight to their website, and everyone should show up. Everyone that listens to this, it's free. Like, why? Like, we're all going to be there. Why not be there? You have so many resources at your fingertips, from to Mark, to Lenny, to Rob. I'm sure they'll all be on there. I'm assuming, maybe not.
Yes, everybody will be there.
More often than not, I'll be on there. So just come check it out, see what we're doing. We talk about a lot of things openly. There's so many good entrepreneurs on there that you can bounce ideas off from. Definitely should go there. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So your live event.
Yeah, so the same class that you went to, it's called Rapid Gain Training. It's the deep dive into the systems and processes that we teach. So the next one is actually going to be in Atlanta, November 14th through the 16th. And so we're filling up that class right now. So this is the perfect class for people that are somewhere in their first 5 to 10 years of business. Maybe they're trying to put their team together, get on top of their growth, stuff like that. And it's a really, really good class. Lenny and Rob and a couple of other coaches will be there teaching it.
Yeah, for sure. And how long is that class?
The one you went to was 2 days. This one's going to be 2.5 days. We're going to expand it a little bit, do even more.
That's cool. When I was there, I got lucky enough to go do a site visit at Rove. So again, shout out to Lenny. It's pretty cool. Go check out his operations, see what they had going on in school. Is that what you try to do strategically, to go near a facility, or not really?
Yeah, we definitely do that. So this next one in Atlanta will be at Stephen Hudak, his office. He's one of our coaches too. You met him. And it's going to be at his office. And it's always fun for people to be able to go see a larger operation and pick the coach's brain and just really, again, cut the trial and error out of what they're doing.
Yeah, when I think when I was there, was he getting a new building? Was he purchasing a new building? Was he moving buildings? Something like that, right?
Good memory, man. Yeah, so this is the new building. And it'll be done in time for this class. This will be one of the first things that happens in the new building.
Oh yeah, pressure's on to get it done now. Are they all moved in already?
No, they're gonna be. So you're right, the pressure's on.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, he's a great resource of knowledge, great coach. Like, he had a lot of really good things to say. So yeah, he's super sharp dude. I was impressed. You never know what to expect. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I came out of there. I was like, that was awesome.
I appreciate that, man. And these guys are they're expert coaches, right? And they facilitate these calls and have been facilitating these kind of classes and calls for years. And so part of what I do is I train coaches as well. And so we do a lot of deep diving into how to facilitate really high level experiences and different things like that. And we think this next class is going to be really special. We're planning to do morning workouts together, evening hangouts, different stuff like that. Yep. And so we love creating an experience and connection around the experience, not just content. So it's going to be the whole package. That's what we like.
That's really, really cool because the second morning we were there. Yeah, I think it must have been the second morning we were there. It was just Laney and I sitting down in the gym, probably should have been in there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hour and a half, just walking next to each other, working out, literally just talking about business for an hour and a half. It was really cool. So now that you bring that up, I'm like, I wonder if that's where that came from. But if not, it was just a really cool experience to have that.
And it just deepens the connection, right? When you get to connect with somebody outside of the classroom.
Yeah, I agree. So it was just him and I lifting, having a good time, talking about family too. Like it was just really cool. I learned a lot about Lenny that day, besides business. So it was pretty awesome. So again, deepens that relationship that, we're just people just like everyone else, I'm going to ask you a couple last questions that I'm just curious. It might be too long of an answer, but when you started in this company, right, you were taking over the CEO's role. Is he still the visionary? Is he still pushing it? Or are you run it? How does that work?
Yeah, that's another cool question. So that original person is actually no longer a part of the team. So he's a really cool guy. You can look him up. His name's Dirk Van Renen. He actually sold his portion of the company so that he could go pursue his bigger vision, which was to have an adventure park. So he now owns Maris Adventure Park in North Texas. People do camping and overlanding, and he 6,500 acres in Palo Duro Canyon. It's pretty cool. So it's all me at this point, casting the vision, driving the team. And of course, there's a couple of other owners and different people in the mix that we all work together.
I mean, he must have been a super sharp dude. Like, it's the way I feel like he operates. Like, he is a visionary at the time, but he wanted to bring in a CEO to take over. But obviously, it's more of like an exit strategy probably at that point. The older guy, younger guy?
He was a fairly young guy. He's in his mid 40s, I guess. And it was definitely part of his exit strategy over time. And there's another founder as well. His name's Greg Bryan, who was really the genesis of the whole project. Those two got together, started the project, and they have hearts of gold, man. They really built something special. And I was very, very blessed to have been able to jump into this with them.
Yeah. So is the new founder that's still currently there, is he still involved? Or, is he out of the picture and you just run the whole thing? What does that relationship look like?
He's very much involved on the coaching side. So he definitely does a lot of coaching, does some speaking. And at the end of the day, him and the other owners of the group, we have an ownership group with the companies that we have. And so all of them are really my soundboard and my support as I cast vision and push things forward. And that's kind of how we're set up.
I think like my goal in the next year or two is to probably hire a true CEO or CEO to come in and take over my spot. I'll still be as president, have him keep driving, and I'll keep passing the vision. So I was just curious how you guys operate,
That's it, man. That's how we operate. So we've got a small board of people that are my soundboard, and they kind of keep me motivated and excited because they're motivated and excited. But at the end of the day, it's me driving the ship.
Yeah. Last two questions. Favorite books? You got any recommendations for me?
Oh gosh, man. So I definitely have. This is always hard for me to answer because I'm not a favorites guy. Yep. But I can tell you a couple books that have had a really big impact on me in the last couple of years. One is Be Your Future Self Now. I believe who is that? It's right behind me somewhere. Dan Sullivan, I believe. Yeah, Be Your Future Self Now, as well as The Gap and the Gain.
The Gap and the Gain is great.
Yeah, those are amazing books. I read Be Your Future Self Now, which the concept is that your future self is your mentor. Like you can actually have conversations. It might sound a little silly having not read the book, but you can have conversations with your future self and ask like, well, what would you do in this successful place that you're already in, looking back? And it's a really neat exercise to walk through.
Last question for you then. What are you most proud of at this point in your life?
I am most proud of the relationship I have with my wife and with my kids, man. We met when we were 14. We have been happily married since. Well, we didn't get married at 14, but that's the joke. We've basically been married since.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and so we've got 2 kids. They're both 14 right now, my boy and my adopted daughter. And that's if everything else went away and they stayed, I'd be all right.
Yep, I agree. That's awesome. Family first, right? Cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with us today, Mark. I know you're a busy guy. You took the last hour with us. So I really do appreciate that. I will definitely see you October 2nd. We'll be on the call. We're super excited. I think everyone should be on there. And it's free Zoom. Let's all connect there again.
I love it. Thanks, Jonas. I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate you. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guest, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.